What's up, folks? So here we are, episode 27, the second bonus show that we've had for you guys this week. Of course, Tuesday we had the bonus show with Mark Farzetta. Tonight, the hockey god himself, Jason Myrtetus, is on with us. It should be a fun show. We'll learn more about the Flyers' upcoming season, what the Flyers did last season, where they got close. They ended up in the bubble, which is a good thing, but of course walked out of the bubble before they were supposed to have. So lots to talk about tonight. I already see the comments coming in from Joey B and others. We're going to get to your comments. We're going to start off the show, and this segment brought to you by Last Out Media. And if I can get to it right here, if you guys want to learn how to become broadcasters, podcasters, want to become better at your craft, reach out to lastoutmedia.com. That's lastoutmedia.com. If you need voiceover work, these guys can show you what to do. John William Crichton, Vince Quinn, and John Barcher. John Barcher, by the way, our coach. So reach out to lastmedia.com. Anything that you need, reach out to them, and they'll be sure to get back to you on a momentary basis. So with that being said, of course, we're going to kick off the show. I'm Angel. This is Broad Street South Sports Talk. And of course, we can't get the show started without my co-host, Mike Fuji. Mikey, how are you tonight?
Hey, folks. Hey, Angel. Flyered up for the new 2021 Flyers season. Flyered up and ready to go. Talk some pucks. How are you?
Good. Trying to get over this stupid nonsense that I've had for a couple of days now, or at least a couple of weeks. And so hopefully it'll get better and I can make it through this show night tonight. But of course, we'll add the guru himself, Mike Sherman, the sports contributor. Mike, how are you?
Doing fantastic tonight. Listen, the Philadelphia Flyers have not won the Stanley Cup since 1975. And do you know what people in Toronto are saying? Hold my beer. They haven't won the Stanley Cup since 1967. The time for the Flyers to try and win this cup is now. The time is ripe for them. Let's get after it.
Well, let's hope so. And I was trying to think of a great introduction for Jason because, again, just the hockey god he is himself. And there was, 30,000 things, but this one came to mind to kind of wrap up Jason and the firepower he brings, and, of course, the Flyers themselves. So I'm going to share the little screen here and then talk about this little introduction. And, of course, the man himself, the legend, Jason, thank you so much for coming on with us tonight. We really appreciate it. We know you have a busy schedule as the season's about to start, but we do appreciate you coming on with us tonight.
No problem. As a goalie, I hate hearing the goal horn, but that's good, though, because that means if that song's getting played and that goal horn, it means the Flyers scored, so that's a beautiful thing.
At least we hope so. We hope. Listen, last year, of course, I will say as a fan of the Flyers, and of course I'm down here in Tampa, so I got to see the current Stanley Cup champions win. But I will say I was surprised last year a lot with what Alain Vigneault did with this team. Truthfully, I didn't see it coming. I know when the Flyers decided to go with Gritty, the mascot, that season felt like all they cared about was the mascot, and things didn't fall the way the Flyers should have. But last year, I was really surprised by this team. So I think the expectation level this year is a bit higher. And I know the coach stated that Philly should be excited for this upcoming season. What do you think so far, just early on, even before the first puck is dropped? How do you feel? Any difference between the 21 campaign versus the 2020 campaign?
Yeah, I think there's a big difference. I was at a camp a couple times this week and got to watch the team practice and do drills and scrimmage. And it's different than other camps because usually this early in camp, they're not scrimmaging like this and they're not ratcheting things up because camp is, around 3 weeks long and you got about 8 meaningless preseason games mixed in there as well. Everybody has a chance to kind of work their way in. But this camp's only 9 days, and they're going to start playing games in 6 days from now on Wednesday the 13th against the Penguins. And there's only 56 games, and every team you play against is in a division. There's only 4 playoff spots in each division open. So every game's a 4-point swing, basically. So there's no time to kind of wait around and let's get our sea legs. It's like, boys, we got to go now. We got to get our crap together here, and we got to be ready to play in now 6 days. So the one thing that's interesting to me is, as I was at camp, and I'm looking at him going, man, this just feels like last year's camp. There's not really many different faces. The only real loss of consequence for this team was Matt Niskanen. It's a big loss, but a lot of the same faces are here. There's a familiarity with not only what they do from a tactical standpoint, an X's and O's standpoint, and on their forecheck, their neutral zone, both the way they want to enter a zone and defend in the neutral zone, and then obviously defend in the D zone and exit the D zone. So all of those things are there. These guys all know what the expectation is in that regard, where to be positionally, how to attack it with that 2-1-2 split forecheck that they use. And then, but the other part, and perhaps even more meaningful part than that, guys, is the fact that they know what is expected of them individually and as a team, and the accountability that Alain Vigneault brings to the table. Because to me, that's the number one thing that changed last year, was the level of accountability for each and every player on the team. And that was a big reason why they made the jump that they did. Doesn't matter if you're a $7 million player like James Van Riemsdyk, or if you're a player on an entry-level contract. If you're not pulling your weight, and that's not, the same across the board. It's if you're not doing the best that you're capable of doing and contributing in the best way that you're capable of contributing, then you have every chance to sit in the press box and watch these games like anybody else. Doesn't matter what you've accomplished, what you've done, or what you've gotten paid, or how long or how short you've been in the league. Everybody's held accountable. So I think that's a big thing going into training camp. And, looking at a couple of players that are coming back, hopefully, and one of them is Nolan Patrick, who missed all of last season, hasn't played a game in 1 year and 278 days, which is insane. And Oscar Lindblom, who obviously went through the cancer last year, did play the 2 games in the bubble, was not himself in those 2 games, and looks considerably stronger now. And the guy that's kind of popped for me the first 3 days of camp, by my own eyes, is Nolan Patrick. He looks tremendous. And I think people, it's easy to give up on him, and you haven't seen him play, and he's been inconsistent and in and out of the lineup when he was playing in his first 2 years. But one thing you forget about Nolan Patrick, he was the number 2 overall pick for a reason. He would have been the number 1 overall pick if he didn't have a core surgery in that offseason leading into his draft year. He is an insanely talented player. You're talking about elite talent. You're talking top end of the draft talent. Great hands, great skater, good 200-foot player, and tremendous hockey IQ. If he's healthy now, if he can remain healthy and start to realize the talent that he has at the NHL level, then this team is going to be in a very, very good position. So that was a long answer to a short question.
Well, no, it's fine for me because it's for me. I mean, it's been a while. Obviously, we've been through a lot of seasons with the Flyers. I mean, as fans, you obviously being more connected with the Flyers than the rest of us for the most part. Well, we've seen, the Flyers either start hot, then cool off, get hot again, but they get hot at the wrong time. Last season, obviously, they were getting hot. And then the pandemic kicked in which ironically, that game I was going to go to down here in Tampa when the Flyers were supposed to come here. And then that night, as I'm heading down to Amalie Arena, the game was called because of COVID. So
March 12th.
Yeah. So, we saw the Flyers, how well they did. And then you restart the playoffs again, or at least restart what was basically a 3-game runoff leading into the playoffs. And the Flyers picked right up where they left off. I mean, it just seemed like they just took that long pause. So I'm hoping with this short, condensed pause that the Flyers can pick up right where they left off. And it seems like, even though, just like you said, there hasn't been many changes, but I think the Flyers can pick up right where they left off in the 20 campaign. So I don't know exactly if you've seen, again, without them being on ice, but how much of a difference can it look for this season versus last?
Well, I think the teams will look different, and there's a couple of different reasons why. One, because you're going to have Oscar Lindblom, who was their leading scorer when he went out of the lineup last year in December with the Ewing sarcoma diagnosis. So where is he in the lineup? He looks stronger, much stronger in camp this year than he did when he was playing in the bubble, number one. So where does he fit in the lineup? Is the other day when I was there, he was on the top line with Sean Couturier and Travis Konechny. That line And the reason why he was leading the team in scoring, that group was together. Is that going to be the group when they start the season? And then obviously Nolan Patrick too, who I alluded to before, but also players, as they go through years early in their career, there's incremental jumps to players in their development. You get into the league, you learn a lot as a young player. You come in and you realize, oh my goodness, I have much less time and space here than I've had at any level I've ever played at. I realized that when I get to this level, I'm playing against the best players in the world, and they're men, and they have man strength. And that when we get into a board battle, I'm not battling a guy that's my same age in my peer group. I'm battling a guy sometimes that can be 6 years older than me. I'm 19 or I'm 22, and this guy's 28, 30 years old. And there's a different level of strength and commit that comes to that, and savviness that comes to that. So as guys move up, guys like Phil Myers, Travis Sanheim, Travis Konechny, young players, you see these incremental jumps in their ability to handle the NHL and the rigors of it. And I expect to see that. Phil Myers has been on what I would call a meteoric trajectory as an undrafted player, just a freak athlete that had to learn how to think the game. And as he's learned how to think the game, he's become a better and better player every year. He's a freak. He can skate like a gazelle and cover the entire sheet of ice. He knows when to activate, but he's also learning when to pull back and get back to being a defensive player. So all of those things will be different. A lot of people remember the 9-game win streak prior to the pause, and they lost the last game against Boston on March 10th before the pause. But they had the 9-game win streak, and they look at them as a team. Well, they were a team that was, white hot going into the pause. But what people need to realize is really since the end of December, when they got off that horrific road trip, got back to the Wells Fargo Center, they were the hottest team since about January 3rd. Only one team had a higher points percentage than them. So they were a team that was on a white hot streak basically for the entire calendar year of 2020 leading into that bubble. So it takes a little bit of time when you have a new coaching staff and new expectations and new levels of accountability, and you are running a slightly different system, really, a 5-man unit that moves up the ice to learn that and really find a way to be able to maximize the system with the players that you have. And the coaching staff's also early in that year last year trying to figure out who to put in certain situations. So once they did that early in the year and they had a really tough travel schedule early, they settled in and they were a really good team. They were one of the best teams in the league. So what do I expect out of them this year? I expect that you showed with this talent that you have that's what you're capable of. Now it's time to repeat it and go further. Take the next progressive step. It was a big progressive step last year. It needs to continue this year, and there's no excuses as to why it shouldn't. Their roster is deep. They have more depth. They have young players. They have a middle-aged core, and they have an upper-end core as well that is still very capable of contributing, and they need to take care of business and be professionals and move forward.
Well, there's 3 questions that I see from as far as people making the comments tonight. Joey B is one of them, and we're going to get to the comments here in a minute. But one thing we like to do, Jason, is also kind of go back as well. As we're going to keep talking, of course, Flyers hockey, but we like to kind of go back in at least into your life, not too personal, obviously, but just to find out you, Jason, as a person. So as far as your childhood, how did you get into hockey? And was it something that you pursued, I guess, as a child, or was it something that just kind of fell into your lap as you grew older?
For me, it wasn't a birthright because my dad was 6'4", so my dad was really tall. I didn't get his height, obviously. I got his hair. But so my dad didn't play growing up, so it wasn't like a birthright. My dad was a Flyers fan growing up and before I was born. And then I have brothers that are twins that are 5 years older than me. And there was a kid that lived in our neighborhood that played hockey. My brothers wanted to play hockey, I think, when they were 8. And my dad went to go sign him up, and he's like, I went with him. And then I found out there was a program, like a learn to skate program, when I was like 4 years old. So I went and I started getting on skates around 4 and started playing organized hockey by 6. Then I've played, with the exception of about 8 years when I got done playing, in my college years, I hung them up for almost a decade. Then I got back on the ice and coaching and that kind of thing. And I've been playing pretty much ever since. And it's been a game that I've played a ton of. I've watched even more of, both in person or on TV, and it's a game that I study. I talk to a lot of people to get different levels of expertise on the game. So it's not something that there's nothing casual about my life with the sport. It's an intense affair that's never really cooled off, maybe with the exception of a few years when I got done playing where I was a little burnt. But other than that, it's been very intense the entire time. It's like, being with some broad. It's always hot and steamy with the sport with me. I love it, and I love everything about it. That two of my kids play. I'm in the rink all the time. I coach their teams, and I think it's done. It's kind of, I mean, you guys kind of know me as a hockey guy, and
Right.
My friends are all my best friends are guys that I grew up playing with, and that I grew up in the sport with, and it's a lot. The sport shaped me, in a lot of the ways that I think about athletics and those kind of things, and there's no denying it. It's a big part of it's always been a big part of my life. It's a big part of my identity, not only professionally, but personally. If I wasn't doing something where I was on the radio or, a public figure in some shape or form, it would still be the same part of my identity. So, I love the game. I think it's important. The lessons that it gives you, the sport has a way of clamping down on people and not letting guys who think they're, king shit get away with stuff, which is good. And it keeps everybody grounded. And I think this is why when you hear hockey players interviewed, they never say I won or I scored the game winner. It's always we. And that's what the sport is. And I love that element of it. And I think it's a good foundation for kids of all different skill levels to take into life.
I think, and kind of, because the follow-up question was going to be just that, as far as when it comes to kids, and thankfully you brought up that your own kids play hockey. So we know that, of course, the parents look at sports today much differently than you and I and the rest of us here in the room, and maybe half the fan base out there. Of when you played because you love the sport. Now a lot of the parents are looking at, well, my kid can get a concussion. Things are more violent now. You being a parent and having your kids playing a game, what advice could you give for someone that may be on the fence of letting their child play? Because right now we know that kids, the activities outside, again, it's not like when we were growing up. A lot of it's behind the computer, on their phone, video games, and that's all fine and well because that's a whole different world. But what can you say to a parent that maybe won't allow their child to play because they think the game is too violent for them?
What I would say is educate yourself. Research it. Look how many kids play. And of course, there is risk. There is with anything. There's risk walking out on the sidewalk and getting hit by a bus too. But if you want, your kid to come up, be raised, you're the parent. You raise them. But if you want to put them in an activity or a sport and get a sense of family and get a sense of, having the back of the guy sitting next to you in the room and on the bench, and you want to get a foundation for the real world, then this is a good sport to put them in. I can't speak to other sports as much because I played them. I played lacrosse, and I played some other sports growing up, and I wrestled. But for me, this sport, it has a way of kind of getting its teeth into people. And I think the lessons, it's not perfect. And there's still some things areas of growth and things the sport needs to do better. But I think overall, do your research and look at it. Yeah, there's unfortunate incidents that happen. There's unfortunate incidents that happen in soccer, which is not really a contact sport. These things can happen. But if you want to, live life scared, then that's your prerogative. But if you want to, go out there, and I think it's good for kids to compete. I think it's good when they get to be the bantam age of 13 and 14 years old to get out there and have physical contact and hit. The equipment's come a long way. Helmets are unbelievably advanced at this point for kids to prevent concussions, which isn't to say they don't get them. They still do. Coaches are also highly trained. We're highly trained through companies like Safe Sport and concussion protocols and all of those things to identify when kids have them and to do the right things when they do. And it gets to a level at certain ages where it's not about playing time, it's about winning. And I think those things are important because the real world's not going to give you, just hand you jobs. You got to earn them. You got to earn playing time. You got to earn it if you want to be on the power play or the penalty kill. You got to earn those things. If you want to play on a top team, if you're going to be a captain, you got to be a leader. And, you look at those things, and those are traits that when you get into the real world that you're taught in the game, that will make it more, put you in a position to have more success. So, yeah, I I would say educate yourselves, do the research. If you don't feel comfortable, that's fine. If you do feel comfortable, after you have the education and the knowledge and the assumption of the risk, then I think it's a great sport to be in.
No, we appreciate the advice, and hopefully the rest of the parents are questioning their children if they like them to join the sport or not. You get it from the hockey god himself. So in case everyone's, if they're having to join us right now, we have Jason Myrtetus on, of course, from the Flyers Broadcast Network. Give him a follow if you guys aren't following him so you can learn everything about the Flyers, of course, Jason himself. And if I do remember correctly, you also do have a podcast with the Flyers, do you not?
I do. Yeah, it's called Flyers Daily. We'll pick it up daily starting next week. We're doing 3 days a week in the off season. The clip there that you saw on my Twitter page was me talking to Joel Farabee from just the other day. Tomorrow we'll have Eric Gustafson on an episode, and you can see Farabee there talking from the Flyers practice facility with me on Zoom. And we do all kinds of interviews with players, and being affiliated with the team gives me a massive advantage in the sense that any player or coach they gave me the scouts. Anybody I want to talk to, they give me the clearance and the ability to get them on the podcast, which is great, because I think a big part of it is, part of my job in doing that and talking to these players and stuff is to kind of peel back the curtain from the chalk interviews that you see after games and in locker rooms. Those are the conversations of, we got to get pucks deep, we got to work hard, we got to take it shift by shift, all that garbage that we're used to hearing. And it's coach speak, right? My job is to kind of expose them more as, people. I have a good relationship with a lot of the players. They know that I'm not going to put them in a bad position or take a quote that they say and make some kind of clickbait story out of it. It's not my job. It's not what I do. So my job is to, get them to peel back the onion a little bit and let these fans kind of know who these players are as people and, the things that they go through as players, and also talk about the games and talk about the preparation for a season in this unique circumstance with a pandemic and all that stuff. So it's a little bit different kind of insight, and it's something that's taken a long time to build up that kind of trust with the players, and to be able to have them be able to open up. And a lot of times when they talk to the media, there is a wall. It takes a while to knock down those walls, and I've been doing it a long time. And I hope people enjoy the content, because I love doing it. I love bringing it to them.
I think when you listen, I will say myself during the pregame, postgame when it comes to the Flyers, and listening to what you say. And the great thing is, when you listen on the radio, you can give such a color commentary that you feel almost like you're reading an actual book and listening to everything that's going on, and you can follow it so deep and so intense that there's few guys, I will say, out there that can actually put it together the way you do. So we appreciate as fans and people out there as far as what you do for us, because you can learn so much from you, just, I guess, from your experience, like you said earlier. Everything that apparently you've learned, you know how to teach others. So one thing is that if you never learned a game of hockey, check out Jason as far as the pre and post game show, because he can teach you a lot, even during the intermission. So we appreciate everything you do, of course, for us as the fan base.
And what I try to do is just explain what I'm saying, right? And just, there's points. Sports are really simple, guys. Team sports. To me, they're not real complicated. There's two things that you're trying to accomplish in sports. A, when there's a scoreboard, you're trying to obviously score points, but you also have to prevent them. And both mean the same thing, because it's cumulative, right? So a great play at the defensive end should mean as much as it does at the offensive end. Never looked at that way, because we as fans love scorers, right? That's one. Number two, the other part of sports is, in team sports, is what's happening in a game is to me is the ability to grab momentum, maintain momentum for as long as you get it, and then when you lose it, get it back. And how do you do that, right? And there's so many ways to do it. You can look at a big goal, and that can change momentum, or a big penalty kill can change momentum. A big hit can change momentum. A small detailed play in sports, can change momentum in a game. And that's how you win. That's how you win, and that's how you lose. Pride at both ends of the ice. To me, it's always about honest effort. It's about being an honest player, so that when you're done and you go into the locker room after a period, after a game, or after a shift, it doesn't matter, that you can be able to look in the mirror and go, on that shift, I did everything I could the right way and with detail, because in sports, everything is detail. We look at everything on a broad scope,
Right.
but success comes in the little tiny things. It's the getting over the red line, and when you dump the puck, dump it deep. Don't dump it to the top of the circle, because then it's coming the other way, and that's a stress point. It's those little things, being on the right side of the puck, being in your defensive zone, be between the puck and your goal, not too high on the wall on the winger, and then they can spin down low. That's where opportunities come. And mistakes are going to happen. It's a flow sport. Mistakes happen. But it's your ability to go out and give an honest effort and put yourself in the best position possible, think the game well, and do those things. And if you do those, I think you're going to have a lot of success.
The one thing I want to ask as well, because and again, it's trying to piggyback on a lot of things you've said there, but we know as far as your childhood, and there's always a child in all of us, obviously, especially when your team wins the Stanley Cup, or the Super Bowl, the World Series, you name it. For you as the broadcaster, when you get to see maybe either a favorite player that you always either had the opportunity of just meeting and or interviewing, does that little part of a feeling, like, do you still get that goosebumps, like, oh my God, I just met so-and-so, without showing it to them?
Not really. I mean, I've been doing it, God, I guess too long now. I mean, there's certain players, like when I see like Martin Brodeur walking around downstairs, and he played for the Devils. I'm not supposed to like Marty,
Right.
I'm not supposed to. But as you can see right there is his mask on my wall. I love Marty, and when I see him, I mean, I've talked to him a few times, and but I'm like, I grew up watching that guy, and to me, seeing some of the guys that you admired so much about their game, especially goaltenders for me, because I just love the position. I love the juxtaposition of an alpha athlete having to react to his surroundings all the time, and how difficult that is. And having played the position my entire life, it's such a weird position in sports as the last line of defense, and the mental aspects of it, having to turn the page after giving up a laugher, and we all give up laugher goals. So you give up really crappy ones. You're like, oh my God, how did I not stop that? Right. But to be able to then compartmentalize that out and go, it's not about that anymore. It's about the next one that comes, and being able to rebound and from those kind of things and prepare yourself mentally and physically and all the things that go into playing the position. So when I see that, the guys like Marty, there's legends that you see once in a while. Like Gretzky was walking around one time, and it's Wayne Gretzky. You know what I mean?
Right.
Of course, those moments are going to strike you a little bit, and having been lucky enough to talk to some of these guys, either on the air or just, say hello, be on an elevator, the press box or whatever it is, I'd be lying if I said that didn't give me a thrill in some way. And it does harken you back to when you were a kid. So I remember that game after Pelle Lindbergh died, and Darren Jensen played at the Wells Fargo Center, and and they were playing against the Edmonton Oilers and Wayne Gretzky, and I remember the 85 and the 87 Cup final, and how great he was. I mean, he wasn't just like a great player. I mean, he's the greatest, and then to see guys like that, or have a chance to talk to guys like that, it does make you at times kind of, when you're in the car ride home or something, go, oh man, I talked to Wayne Gretzky tonight. Imagine if somebody would have told me I would do that when I was 14 years old, or I was 10, you never would have believed it. Right.
Right.
So I've been blessed. I've been really lucky to love the game and to work in the game and try to bring the game and grow the game to people. You guys know this. I fly the flag. I don't make any qualms about it. I fly the hockey flag all the time when it's not, sports radio people. Not many of them do it. I don't care. I catch a lot of crap for it. I don't give a crap.
Right.
I think it's important to fly the flag. It's who I am. I always try to be authentic. So I'm going to continue to do it. And, some people go, oh, you're saying, look at me, look at my sport, or you're jealous of the NBA. I love the NBA. I love the NFL. I love them all, but I love hockey more. And I fly the flag proudly. So it's who I am. And I always say, if you're not going to be authentic, then, go shit in the water or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's so true. Well, it's the same way, again, just to kind of piggyback on what you just said here. It's funny because if you look at life almost like full circle, a lot of us know that you're very humble. Joey B, I know he has a lot of questions I want to get to here shortly, but we know that you're very humble, and it's funny to be able to see you on behind the booth years ago, and obviously now interviewing you, I guess, on the other side of the camera here. So yeah, things do become full circle, and you do have that little bit of that giddiness, like, wow, we're actually speaking to Jason Myrtetus, and it's a great experience for us and the fan base, because a lot of times I'm pretty sure for you guys, I know you're probably asked almost the same questions kind of like over and over again, but it's nice for the fans to actually know who the person is besides hockey. But as far as the knowledge, like I said, from hockey itself, I mean, it's second to none. So again, we appreciate everything you do. Joey, just to get a couple questions here before I turn over to Mike. Joey B says, Myrtetus, talk more about the division and how much less travel there is with the Western divisions.
There's a ton less travel, Joey. Joey's a good man. I see him on here a lot in different shows that I do. Yeah, I mean, look, the furthest north they're going to travel, they're not going to leave the time zone for the entire season. Number one, only 3 of the teams they play, they'll take a plane to. That's Boston, Buffalo, and Pittsburgh. Other than that, it's bus rides or train rides. And, to not ever leave the time zone is a big thing for when you're in the grind of an 82-game schedule and you're swapping time zones and going to the West Coast and then Central, pop up to the West again, then come back East and play. Those things wear down players in a big way. And the schedule for them with this Northeast Corridor and this East Division is so compact geographically that it gives them a huge advantage. You look at a team like Colorado who's playing in the West, and you got 3 California teams. I mean, you're all over the map. They're going to be traveling a lot. They're going to be traveling out of their time zone a ton. For the Flyers to not be doing that, now their division's a lot harder because the teams are a lot better, but there is something to be said for that and the grind of a regular season in any sport to be able to remain in the same time zone, play the same team. A lot of familiarity, a lot of callous is going to get built up that way, a lot of hatred. Some rivalries will go to the next level, whether that's Pittsburgh, New York, either the New York teams, New Jersey, whoever. Some rivalries might be renewed a little bit with Boston, who they won their first cup over. Or Buffalo, who they won their second cup over, and then the Hasek years and Matthew Barnaby years and all the craziness that happened there with Lindy Ruff as the head coach, and now Lindy Ruff, the coach in New Jersey. There's all kinds of storylines. It's really, I wish they were playing the whole league and everything was normal, but it's not. It is what it is. And you got to play there's 8 teams in your division. You got 7 opponents throughout the entire year, and you're going to play them 8 times. Imagine what that's going to be like. There's going to be a lot of piss and vinegar in those games, a lot of calling cards. So I think that's going to be an interesting element of this whole thing too.
Right. And I think you're exactly right. Ryan Neff, a great friend of the show here, he says, do any of us remember what you were doing from 73 to 75 when the Flyers were Stanley Cup champs?
I was probably pissing and shitting my pants. I was only 1 to 3 years old there. I was born in 72, so yeah, I'm sure I had a dirty diaper and sucking on a bottle and eating stewed carrots or something. I don't know. I don't remember it. I don't have memories that go back to when I was that little. My first memory was actually in 1980 when the Eagles were in the Super Bowl when I was 8. So, and they lost to Jim Plunkett and the Raiders. But I don't remember. I've heard about it and I've seen pictures and videos, but that's a little before my time. But I had a chance to see the cup handed out in Philadelphia to the Chicago Blackhawks after Game 6 in the 2010 final. And I will tell you that when I got done my post-game show that night, because the cup is glorious. I mean, that thing is, whoa. I mean, it is a beautiful piece of hardware to win. And you don't win it, you earn it. Nobody's ever given the cup. You've earned that thing. And usually you got a few scars and stitches and bumps and bruises and black eyes and missing teeth to get it. Yeah. But to see that thing and to see the Chicago players, now this was the first one they won of the 3 in the decade, and to see how they just kind of reveled in it on the ice. I sat on the bench from about 10:45 that night until about 1 a.m. and just watched them with their families. And some of them had kids and some of them just had their girlfriends. Some had their wives, some had their parents and others there, and just hanging out on the ice in their gear, drinking and having a good time, and just couldn't keep their hands off the cup. Just watching that was like, I was disappointed that it wasn't the Flyers that won it and this fan base that didn't get to have that moment. But to see that was, it was incredible. I mean, it was surreal to just sit there on their bench and just watch this whole thing unfolding. And I sat there for multiple hours watching it. I must have looked like a creep, but it was just mind blowing to me, because any kid that's ever tied a pair of skates on their feet and put a stick in their hand, whether no matter what position you played or what level you got to, that was the one you wanted. That's the piece of hardware you wanted to earn. And I was never good enough to get to close to that level, but y'all dream, and those guys were living it, and it was just sick and surreal to watch.
Well, I will say before I get to the next question here from Joey B, being down here in Tampa, and I went, of course, a couple of games are obviously televised. We were sitting outside Amalie Arena, in Thunder Alley. It's such a different feeling. Like hockey has, it can bring so many people together. I mean, you can do it, again, in the NFL, you can do it in MLB, but when you're around a fan base that absolutely adores and loves hockey, and then you go to that championship parade. Of course, I'm fresh from the one from the Eagles in 2017. So seeing that not only coming down and we're a stone's throw away from Lord Stanley himself, but being on the water, I mean, it does give you that chills. And I wish it was the Flyers. I would have seen in front, but I celebrated locally with everyone else because I wanted to see Lord Stanley myself. And that is one marvelous cup, because the boat came and I mean, probably between 15 feet of us and around the side dock. So it was definitely something else. But I do appreciate
it's a spectacle. The trophy's a spectacle, man.
Yeah.
It, like, people see it, and like if any team that has the parade, like, they all go nuts when player X, Y, or Z go by on the float, but when the cup comes by, it's like, it like takes your breath away. It's so big, it's so shiny, and the lore that it has, it's not. It's different than the other trophies. Like the baseball trophy to me is cool with the flags on it, and the Larry O'Brien trophies for the NBA, they're all cool. But when you talk about like the king of cool, it's the Stanley Cup.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, that is like, it just dwarfs every other one. And people see what those players put themselves through to win it. And I mean, what they do is insane. 5 overtime games, and, getting their face blown up, and, getting 46 stitches and going out for their next shift after they get stitched up. What they're willing to do to be able to lift that thing I think is the reason why it's even more kind of revered and just looked at like, wow, what do you got to do to get that thing, is what you have to go through. It's like the scene in Shawshank. I had to, crawl through 6 miles of whatever to get there.
Right.
And that's what it is. It's like SEAL training, and it's crazy what they go through to do it.
It is. It's absolutely insane. But and the funny thing is, like any other sport, you might win it this year or get close to it, and God knows when you can do it again. So it is the Covenant Trophy of all. Joey says, Jason, how important was a U.S. junior team win over Canada in the World Championships? Important as far as more U.S. players coming soon to the NHL and U.S. hockey in general.
Well, USA Hockey's been taking huge leaps and bounds, especially at those higher levels with the NTDP, which is the National Team Development Program out in Michigan. And I mean, look, they've won since 2010. They've now won 4. They've won 4 U.S. Junior U20 championships, under 20 age championships. And, USA Hockey should be looked at on that same stage with Canada. In the last 10 years, the U.S. has won it 4 times. Canada's won it 3. When you look at all those things and where USA Hockey is now, 1980 and the Olympic and the Miracle on Ice were a huge thing.
Yeah. And
really brought it to, the center stage in this country as to what they could do. But, I mean, I hope a lot of people watched it. There was no other hockey to watch, and it had center stage by itself this year with the NHL not yet started. So that's a good thing. But, seeing what these kids are accomplishing, I mean, the team they beat in Canada was being looked at before that game as perhaps the best U20 team they've ever fielded, with the 1997 team and the 2005 team that had Sidney Crosby and Mike Richards and Ryan Getzlaff and Jeff Carter and all these great players on it. Until that game, and U.S. went out and they outplayed them, they outworked them, they outskated them, they obviously outscored them, and that's all that matters.
Oh, Joey brings up another question here, and I got another one as far as the picture, but he says, would the NHL ever bring back the white sweaters on home ice?
I kind of like that too. It was kind of Who's the home team? Okay, whoever's wearing white. Now it's the other way around. I don't know why they changed it, but and I can't even remember when they changed it. I think it was probably sometime in the 90s.
I want to say,
yeah, probably like the third jersey kind of maybe started to change that. So I don't know.
I want to say 1992, I believe.
Yeah,
91, 92.
Was it even that far back? Wow, I
believe it was.
Yeah, could have been.
I'm pretty sure.
Maybe when the Flyers brought in their black jersey, maybe around that time.
Yeah, well, Joey brings up a good question because, of course, here now the Flyers have their custom reverse retro jerseys. What do you think of that retro jersey, Jason?
I like them. They're not. I didn't like theirs the best out of all of them. I thought Buffalo was tremendous. Their color scheme, I thought they did a really good job. Some of them I liked, some of them I didn't. That's a good one though. The Flyers did a good job. And the reverse retro and the black sleeves I think are cool. So I really won't be able to tell until I see it on the ice. So I see the full ensemble. What's the pants are they wearing? Do the pants have a stripe? What socks are they wearing? Are they wearing a white helmet with them or are they wearing a black helmet? All those things matter. You got to see the full ensemble before I'm ready to give my full-blown opinion on it.
Right. Mikey?
Jason, as far as the Flyers' new additions, as far as Eric Gustafson and I don't know if I'm saying his name right. Derek
Pouliot.
That's it. What do they bring to the table, and how much of an impact do you think they'll be to the young guys?
Well, Gustafson, I think that he's a guy that I think Pouliot's more of a depth guy. He could be. I think he's an extra D for the Flyers or Phantoms. He's a former first-round pick, though. I mean, he's a guy that's got skill. So I don't want that to be overlooked, and you can't have enough depth defensively. But Eric Gustafson was a guy that's brought in. He's a skilled player. He's an offensive defenseman. He's not going to be a shutdown D-man. That's not the player that he is or has been, although he was a top-pairing D-man in Chicago alongside Duncan Keith on the right side. So he's a really skilled guy, and it's odd because I had a chance to – I actually talked to Eric Gustafson today for an interview that'll be on tomorrow's Flyers Daily, and just had to talk to him about, what it's been like being here and, what's in this – having come from Chicago where he played with great players, obviously, right? And a team that accomplished so much, and what are the similarities in those groups, and what he's kind of feeling with this new team in this situation, and it's some really interesting stuff. He's a really skilled player. I've seen his playmaking ability in the scrimmages in camp. He sees the ice incredibly well, and he will drive offense. So that's a good thing. In today's NHL, defensemen have to be able to drive offense, and he does. So he's a guy that had 50 points in this league from the blue line, which is a good number. So it's a 1-year contract. It's a low AAV. And so he's a player that can contribute to this team. And then they see where they go from there. See if they have a long-term, to make, if they're after this season, they're willing to make a, more substantial commitment to each other. But he's a guy that I think will be really interesting to watch.
Do you think that first round pick Tyson Forrester, how's he looking in training camp?
Well, he's got a long way to go. He's got a skill that when you're picking where the Flyers picked in the draft and they picked Tyson at, you're not looking for a guy that's going to be able to jump right into the NHL. He's not ready for that. He's got a lot of developing to do. What people have to remember too, you look at first round picks in the NFL or you look at first round picks in the NBA, they're different because these kids, they're drafting kids. These are 18-year-old kids. Sometimes. And not every 18-year-old is created equal, whether it's just because of an early birthday or late birthday is a big thing. And they're not fully developed, and you're not going to just jump into that league and play with the best players in the world that are men. Sometimes these kids come in, they don't shave, they don't have hair to their armpits yet. You know what I mean? They're kids.
Exactly.
So, and Tyson, he's got a big frame. What I know about Tyson is he's got to work on his skating. He's got to get better at, with his skating to be able to be a good player at the NHL level, to be a guy that can take advantage of his, biggest asset, which is a really big shot. I mean, he's got a bomb. He can let it go. He'll let it go from anywhere in the offensive zone. And when I looked at a lot of, some tape on Tyson, I can go, everybody looks like they have a good hard shot, right? But when you see a guy score repeatedly and the goalie doesn't move no matter what level he's at, that's when you go, okay, it might be special. And when you just blow it by guys and they don't even have a chance to react when he's playing, in major junior. You look at those things and you go, okay, this guy's got something. And what he has is he has an elite shot. And that's why he's a first round pick. So he's got to improve those other areas. He's got to get bigger. He's got to get stronger so he can win in board battles and the details of the game to ultimately be able to unleash that shot at the pro level and be able to rack up some goals with it.
Do you see the Flyers and Carter Hart ready to go to the next level?
Oh,
The ultimate level, I should say.
Yeah, the kid's pretty much there now. I mean, when I look at the playoff run and the performance, and it wasn't, there was a game they played against Montreal, and he's playing against Carey Price, who's his idol growing up, and he's modeled so much of his game on and off the ice after. That's a realization for a kid. I mean, he's still a kid. He was 22 years old, right? And you go, okay, that's a moment. That's tough. That's a tough one. That guy's at the other end, and you can say the goalie doesn't play against the other goalie, and they don't, because he doesn't go down the ice. He doesn't shoot on Carey Price, and Carey Price doesn't shoot on him. The members of your team do. But you are competing against the guy at the other end of the ice as a goalie. You're looking down there, and you're trying to outduel your counterpart. And that's what the other goalie is. And in the one game, he had 32 saves on 31 shots. The Flyers won the game 2-1. And it wasn't the 31 saves on 32 shots that really kind of blew my mind. It was the manner in which he did it. Is the fact that it never looked like his heart rate went over 72 beats per minute. And, goalies, they're all different in the way they play the game and the way they look like they're playing the game. You see certain players in sports, guys like Ben Simmons is just an elite athlete. Doesn't look like he's giving a ton of effort, even though it's just he's so fluid. And Carey Price is that way, and Carter's that way, where he's so under control. He's not flashy because he's so efficient in his movement and in his technical aspects that often it looks like the puck just hits him. But it hits him because he's in the right spot. And he knows how to beat the pass and be in that spot. And he knows how to not waste all of this movement to get there, because you don't have time at that level. And he's so diligent in his craft. And the fact that, that thing about the 72 beats per minute is something that pervades a team. When they look back there and they're on the bench and he's under siege and he's making these great saves, and they see that he's not flailing all over the place to do it, and he's totally calm and under control, they all get this. It's like having a really big guy on your line. Like all this, when you got a big 6'6" guy on your line, that's a big, strong, physically intimidating guy. You just grew 2 inches. You just got stronger. Well, when you see that with your goalie, you just feel better. You know that, hey, if I make a mistake, this dude's going to bail me out. He's not going to panic. And because the game's there's mistakes that are going to happen. And if you're playing the game afraid to make a mistake, then you've lost all your your creativity. It's what I say it all the time. The position of goaltender is 80% in hockey. Unless you don't have it, then it's 100%. And if you don't have it, you're dead. So you can't have success without it, because anytime you make a mistake, you're pulling it out of the back of your net. And with him, and as calm as he is, it's so impressive for a young guy. I mean, I've gotten to know him pretty well in the last couple of years. And, we'll text on occasion and talk on occasion on and off the air. And he had an opportunity this summer to represent a manufacturer for equipment as an endorsement. And he just didn't feel like he had enough time this summer to be able to really commit to testing out the product and everything else, and decided, hey guys, we got to revisit this next summer because I got to get ready for this season. It's too important. And he's not a guy that's made a lot of money. Could use a little extra scratch. He hasn't got to sign that big ticket yet, right? That big sheet. So when you look at that, and when you look at a guy that's that young and is so cognizant that, hey, I don't have time to test equipment this summer to make that commitment to you guys. I got to work on getting ready. That tells you a lot about who he is, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah. So to me, just every element of his game, his persona, his preparation, his, diligence in the craft and willing to add new things to his game is so off the charts and ahead of his years that he's going to take the next step, and he's going to continue to take other steps and until he's the best goalie in the league. That's what he wants. He doesn't want to be the second best goalie. He wants to be the best. And he articulates that, and that's how he's driven. So, he's added so many things to his game. Like I'll see him in practice working on something, and I'll just kind of text him, be like, "Dude, I see you going through this movement. Like, what is it?" And he'll be like, "Oh, that's something we're adding. Trying to add to the toolbox called the spread, where it looks like he's falling forward, but he's repeating this movement, and it's the same every time." And I see that. I see something called a double seal, where you get both legs flat down on each post on plays, from behind the goal line. He's always trying to add stuff to his arsenal. Just more things and more things he can deploy with the same goal of for every goalie to stop more pucks.
Mike, before you continue your questions here, I want to get back to a couple of the comments and questions as well, but especially this one here with Michelle. Michelle's been one of our first lady followers, I would say, our viewers since just about inception. She says, I hate to spoil the Philly flow, but unfortunately I'm a Buffalo Sabres fan. And of course, David said, glad she has a lot of patience because Buffalo still a work in progress. But David Sherman says Morin has got to make an impact sooner or later. The toughness will provide more confidence, even though there will be obviously more injury periods.
Well, they moved Morin from D to wing because they just don't have room for him on the blue line. And Sam said it the other day. He's fighting for his career, and it's hard not to like Sam. Sam's a great guy. He's not a kid anymore, and he's had some really bad luck. He's had some really significant injuries that are really tough to come back from, and he's playing for his career. He's making a really tough transition from the blue line to a winger. As a 6'7" guy, that's enormous, right? And so he's really up against it. It's a tough spot for him. Maybe things change and he can go back to playing D if it doesn't work out at wing. But at this point, it's going to be tough for Sam. It's a really difficult thing that he's trying to do. Excuse me. And we'll see if he can do it. I mean, he's going to get everything he has, but I don't know. This is a tough putt. It's a tough putt to move from D to wing.
So Tom asked, Jason, who is your favorite Flyer of all time?
Pelle Lindbergh. Yeah, it was Pelle. I was a little too young maybe for Bernie, although I remember seeing Bernie, and one of the reasons why I wanted to get in the net was that mask, which you see right there.
Right.
Duck my head a little bit. You can see it better. And Pelle ended up wearing one very similar. But Pelle was the first athlete that I was like, whoa, this dude, like, right, freaking out. And then of course he passed away far too soon, tragic accident back in 1985. But Pelle was the one for me. And then I fell in love with Hextall too. Yeah, like Michelle says, I loved Hextall, or she hated Hextall, and I understand why. And Ronnie is he just was so different, right? I mean, goalies were all really small prior to that, and then all of a sudden this guy comes along that's like 6'3" and Hextall, and he's playing the puck all over the place. He's banging the goalposts. He's a maniac. Not only that, he's initiating contact. He's going after guys. It was like all the young goalies growing up, like all of a sudden it was like, whoa, we're all changing. And you saw it like at youth levels, that everybody changing. We were all starting to fly out of the crease, working on shooting the puck with our goalie stick and glove at practice and stuff like that. Everybody was emulating it, and it spawned a whole different spin off of the position. And Hexy was just, it was incredible to watch. He was so good early in his career, and the way he played the position was so different. So it was really, really cool to watch. And then when I got let go from the Fanatic, a really surreal moment for me. I got to know Hexy, obviously. He was the GM of the team, and in my position, I got to know him, pretty well. And the day after I got let go, I got a text message from him just saying, "Hey, just wanted to shoot you a note. I heard that you got let go, and just wanted to wish you luck. If you need anything, let me know." And that was really special to me. It really meant a lot, to get that from him. He was one of my idols growing up too, and to get that from Ron. A lot of people don't know what he was like as a person. They see him as the stoic GM, right? And they look at on that, and to get that from Hexy was really meaningful to me.
Well, speaking of that, since we're having some nostalgia moments here, then what would be more nostalgic to you, the Spectrum and or the Wells Fargo Center right now?
Well, it's a Spectrum. I mean, I grew up in that building. I was lucky. My dad had season tickets, Section R, Row 7. And my mom used to take me down, drop me off to meet my dad. My dad worked in the city. So my mom would drive me down, drop me off at Ovations. I go down there and have a little something to eat. My dad be, with all of his business buddies having drinks. And I'd go up and watch warm up while he was, conducting business. And, to be in that building, I saw so many great games, so many great players, so much in that building. I played on that ice several times. It was that building was a temple. It was antiquated, old, and out of date eventually, but it was awesome. That building meant a lot to me. It really did.
Mike,
I was going to say, you just had me reminisce in Game 6 of '87 Stanley Cup Finals. J.J. Daniel from the blue line. Boom.
Yeah, I remember being home. Me and my brothers were home watching it. My mom and dad were there. My mom came home and came in right into the house, went right into the bedroom and got some aspirin because she had the worst headache in the world because she said it was the loudest thing she ever heard.
I thought the Spectrum roof was going to blow off for
the second time.
Yeah.
It was what a moment that was. I remember 85, I'm 12 years old or whatever, and jumping up and down in front of the TV, just couldn't believe it. They were down in that game, and eventually they come back, and the JJ Clapper from the blue line on that turnover goes in by Grant Fuhr, and you're like, whoa, they got a chance against this team. It was magical. They just ran out of gas in Game 7.
Scored the first goal.
Yeah.
After trailing in every other game.
Yeah, and just weren't able to get it done. They didn't have Tim Kerr for that series. That might have been a huge difference, but
big time.
That was whew, man. That was probably the series that made me just like go off the charts in love with the game.
The greatest comeback from the dead. I forget who said that, but
yeah,
it was referenced. Yeah,
it was amazing. It was a great run.
Joey asks, why did Doc Emmerich retire?
Doc's been thinking about it a long time. Doc wants to have a life after hockey, and he's a good family man. I don't know him real well. He's been doing it for a long, long time. And he's been at the top of the mountain for a long time. So I would imagine just to spend time with his wife in his later years. And he didn't want to. I think he didn't want to be one of those guys either that was getting told when it was time to hang it up. Wanted to hang it up while he was on top, and he did.
No. Listen, Jason, we don't want to take up too much more of your time, obviously, because we are coming up on the hour here. So we do appreciate you coming on tonight, sharing the knowledge, having some throwback moments. So, of course, we look forward to the exhibition match, which is there's one coming up this week, if I do remember correctly.
Yeah, there's just a inter-squad scrimmage on Sunday.
That's where it is, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we're 6 days away from the in-state rival, which, of course, a lot of us can't stand the Penguins. But, then again, that's a whole different show for a whole different day. Yeah. But Jason, we thank you. And of course, everyone who's tuning in, we thank you so much for coming on tonight with Jason. And again, I hope you have a great New Year. Obviously, we'll be watching you and listening for you as well. And you also have like part-time on the weekends as well in 97.5 The Fanatic, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I do a show on Saturdays from noon to 3 at a Parks Casino, which is always fun. And we'll be talking some hockey, getting people pumped up for the season this Saturday. And we'll be there each and every Saturday. And all the Flyers pregame shows coming up. And I can't wait to get started, man. I'm ready to go.
No, so are we, because we're waiting for the season to get kicked off. So, Jason, thank you very much. For everyone else, of course, we will see you on Saturday as the playoffs start coming up for the AFC and NFC. So we will see everyone on Saturday at 12 on Saturday. So until then, of course, Jason, thank you again. For my co-host, Mike Fuji, for sports contributor, The Juru, we will see everyone later on. Have a great night, everyone.